All right, we are re-recording this. This is Quadratics Part 2 because while I was going through this problem last time, there's just too many mental typos. So we're gonna go through this again, and we need to remember from Part 1 the quadratic formula in standard form, okay? A, x squared plus bx plus c, where a cannot equal 0, a and b are coefficients, c is a constant, the entire thing is equated to 0, and if a is positive, then your graph is going to open up. If your a is negative, your graph is going to open down. Okay, so that's kind of like covering standard form again. Quadratic equation. This is how you find your roots or the values of x for which your equation will hold true. Okay, there's a double operator, plus or minus here. This means you're gonna have to run this equation twice. All right, you have negative b, which is the same thing as saying negative 1 multiplied by the value of b plus or minus the square root of the whole quantity b squared minus 4 multiplied by a multiplied by c, all over 2a. Okay, so let's cover a couple of things again real quick. Negative b is the same as saying negative 1 multiplied by the value of b. All right, if we're doing a squared value here, b squared, if b is negative and you're squaring a negative, you're going to wind up with a positive. All right, we're also going to say that we're going to do this minus sign, okay, it's minus, and we're going to tuck 4ac together, okay? So when we're doing, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, left to right, parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction, going from left to right, okay? So first, when we go and plug all these values in, what we're gonna do is we're going to square b, okay? B squared is whatever it is when we get to it. Then we're going to multiply within these parentheses that we just popped in there. We're gonna multiply a and c together, and then multiply that value by 4. And that value within those brackets is what is going to be subtracted from your b squared term, okay? Then we're gonna go to the bottom, and we're going to multiply 2 times the value of a. Once we do all of that, we should have a negative b value. It can either be negative or positive. This is negative 1 multiplied by the value of b. So if the value of b is negative, your value here as a whole with this negative 1 here is going to be positive, right? Because negative 1 times a negative value is a positive value. Plus or minus your double operator, square root of, you're gonna have a value here which you had squared, subtracted a value within these parentheses, which is a times c multiplied by 4, all over this value down here, which is 2 multiplied by a. And then you're gonna work things out the rest of the way through to find your values of x. Okay, again, x is a root. It is the value for which x remains true in your equation. So, if we're given an equation, or we find an equation, and we need to find our values of x, first thing we're going to do is try to put it in standard form, okay? Standard form. Standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c, all equated to 0. You can see neither of these sides are 0. So we know we're going to have to equate it to 0, okay? But we also know that when you have x's up top, which are being squared, you cannot have an x in the denominator, okay? So we want everything from the denominator, we want everything from the bottom to be put up top, okay? That's the first thing we're gonna do. Take whatever's in your denominator, find a way to move it up top. Then you're going to FOIL, which is just the distributive property of this portion up here, okay? You're going to combine like terms, so you know that you can add, say, negative x plus 2x. That's just going to give you positive x, right? But you cannot, you can do that, but you cannot do x squared plus x. That does not equal x cubed. No, does not, okay? You cannot add those terms. These are not like terms. You might as well be saying that this is a triangle and this is a circle. They are not the same thing. You cannot add them. You cannot, in this, in this case, multiply them together. But when we go to combine like terms and reorder everything so that we put it again up here in standard form, we can't combine those, okay? Only x's can be combined. X squareds can be combined, but an x and an x squared cannot be combined. All right, so that's explaining like terms. All right, so let's move on. And we're going to do our first step, put everything from the denominator up top into the numerator. So what are we gonna do? We wanna move this x over here. So we're going to multiply both sides by x, right? When we go ahead and do that, multiply by x, x divided by x is 1, okay? So these values cancel out. We're gonna multiply both sides again. Multiply both sides by x. All right, let's come down here. 0.36x equals your values up top. The quantity, 0.1 minus 2x, all squared. All right, now we want to expand this, and to expand it, we're going to do something called FOIL, which is the distributive property. In our previous videos, we learned how to distribute, say, a 2 through x minus 1, right? So to distribute that 2, we multiplied each term, right? So this would have given you 2x minus 2. That's the distributive property, okay? We're doing this now with 2 terms, right? Instead of just that 1, 2 times, you know, term 1 and term 2, we're now doing 2 terms, a term here and a term here, multiplied by a term here, and a term here, okay? Now remember, when you're squaring something, you're multiplying that thing by itself all over again, right? So we're going to expand this, and we're going to say 0.1 minus 2x. That value multiplied all over again by itself, 0.1 minus 2x, okay? All of that equal to 0.36x. Now what are we going to do here? To distribute, there's something called FOIL. FOIL stands for first terms, outside terms, inside terms, and last terms. So your first terms, this is your first term in this pair of brackets, okay? And this is your first term in this pair of brackets. So you're going to multiply those things first, okay? Then you're going to do outside. If I can get this to erase. Then you're going to do your outside terms, right? So this is on the far side outside, and this is on the far side outside. So you're going to multiply those two terms together. And as you go through this, you're adding the terms together, okay? So, for instance, this is a positive 0.1 times a negative 2x, okay? That's going to give you a negative value. You're adding a negative value, which is the same as subtracting that value. All right? So then, after you do your outside terms, we're going to do our inside terms. This is your inside term. This is your inside term. So you're going to multiply those two together. And then finally, you're going to do your last terms. This is the last term within these brackets here. And this is the last term within these brackets here. So you're going to multiply those together. And again, as we multiply each of these things, we are adding them together. One term after the other, after the other, after the other. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to combine like terms, like we were talking about, and we're going to reorder it so that it's in the correct order. A, x squared, plus bx, plus c equals 0. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to take all of this and move it up there. Okay, so 0.36x equals 0.1 minus 2x, 0.1 minus 2x, okay? So let's FOIL first values, right? We'll do our first values first. And again, we're following our language of math. Keep our equal signs in order in a downward fashion. Keep everything stacked on top of each other. Okay, so 0.1 multiplied by 0.1 gives you 0.01. Okay, so those were our first terms. Let's do our outside terms. Here, 0.1 multiplied by negative 2x is going to give you the value negative 0.2x. Then we're going to go and do our inside terms, okay? And that's going to give us the exact same value, negative 0.2x. And then we're going to do our last terms here. Now, Lots of people get this confused. If I give you 2x and I ask you to square that, okay, you're going to square your 2 first. So 2 times 2 is 4. Then you're going to square your x squared. Okay? So if I were to give you the value (3x) squared, you're going to square your 3 first, so 9. Then you're going to square your x squared. Okay? And this is all the same as saying, by squaring that, it's the same as saying 3x multiplied by 3x. It's the same thing. 9x squared. Okay? So when we go up here and we do our 2's, and we have negative 2x multiplied by negative 2x. First of all, a negative multiplied by a negative is a positive. So that's going to be a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. So 4x squared. Okay? So when we multiply again these last terms, it's plus 4x squared. And we've still got our 0.36x. Now we have everything expanded. Woohoo! Right? But what are we missing? Well, we're not equated to 0 yet. We need to equate this to 0. Fastest way of doing that is to move the fewest number of values. So instead of moving all of this crap over here, don't do that. Okay? We're just going to move this one little part over there. All right. So to move that one little part over there, we're going to subtract it from both sides, which makes this equal to 0 now over here. Okay? And we're going to subtract it from over here, minus 0.36x. Now what is our next goal? Right? We FOILed, we expanded. Now we want to combine like terms. All right? What did we say about like terms? An x can be combined with an x, okay? An x squared cannot be combined with an x, okay? So let's combine like terms. We know that this 0.01 is just a 0.01. It's just hanging out there. It's just our constant, right? 0.01. Let's combine our like terms. So we're going to have negative 0.2x minus 0.2x minus 0.36x, okay? So this is going to give you a value of negative 0.76x, right? 0.2, 0.2, 0.36, okay? So you're going to subtract a 0.76x. And then you've got your plus 4x squared, okay? Now, we need to reorder that equation so that it matches our standard form, right? We want to know what our A, B, and C are. So we're going to reorder the equation. We're going to take this whole positive 4x squared and pop him up front. Positive 4x squared, okay? we're going to take our b. It's attached to the x. So negative 0.76x. Then we're going to take our c, a positive 0.01. Okay? And boom, all of a sudden, we're in standard form, right? We've got our A. Our A is a positive 4. A equals positive 4. Our B is here, our negative 0.76. It's attached to this X. So B equals negative 0.76, not 0.76x, just the value of the coefficient, okay? And then of course we have our C here. So C equals 0.01. All right, so those are our values of A, B, and C. What are we gonna do now? Well, we need to find our roots of the X, right? So we're going to plug these things in to the quadratic equation. Let's take this. We're going to plug these things in. So we have x equals negative, what did we say about this negative b? It's the same as a negative 1 multiplied by the equivalent value of b, right? So we can say negative of a negative 0.76, okay? Which is just going to turn out to be positive. Negative times negative is a positive. But let's continue. Plus or minus, there's our double operator. Square root of negative, again, let's set this in parentheses, negative 0.76 squared minus 4 times, and actually let's put this in parentheses too, so we don't get ourselves confused. 4 times A, which we said was 4, C, 0.01, 0.01, okay? All right, so all of that over top of 2a. A is 4, okay? So now how are we, let's go back, right? If you need to pause the video and go back and talk about how we did our order of operations to figure this out, we're gonna do, hold on. Do what's in our parentheses first, okay? So let's figure that out. And again, follow the language of math. Negative 0.76 plus or minus square root of this value, 0.76 squared minus, let's do what's in that parentheses, okay? 4 times 4 is 16, multiplied by 0.01, it's gonna be 0.16. So within that parentheses is now 0.16, okay? All over, again, 2 times 4. We're doing this step by step by step so that you can follow along and make sure that you get the right answer under that radical, because that is the most important thing, okay? So you're subtracting that whole value. So x equals, let's go ahead and follow through with our order of operations, plus or minus. Let's do this exponent, which is, now a negative times negative is a positive, so that's going to be positive 0.5776, okay? Subtracted 0.16, all over 2 times 4. And we're doing literally every single step, okay? X equals, let's do the radical now, okay? So if you have a radical, it's kind of the same thing as saying an exponent, okay? As far as order of operations goes. So you're gonna wanna do what's underneath the radical first. Even though this is subtraction, you wanna do what's underneath the radical first because it's like a power. Okay, so negative 0.76 plus or minus. What's under that radical? That would be 0.4176 all over, again, 2 times 4, each and every little step. All right, now we're gonna do that radical. So X equals negative 0.76 plus or minus. That radical is going to give you a value of 0.65, okay? All over, once again, write everything out, 2 times 4, right? We're continuing through. And again, if you missed some of this, you can go back, push pause, write in every single little note, write notes in your margins, etc. But we're gonna take this and we're gonna go back up here, okay? Let's go ahead and express this negative of a negative, okay? So that -1 multiplied by negative 0.76 gives you a positive 0.76 plus or minus 0.65 over, let's go ahead and multiply that 2 times 4, that's 8. Okay, so you know that this is a double operator. You're gonna have to do this twice. You're gonna have to do 0.76 plus 0.65 over 8, and you're gonna have to do the subtraction, okay? So you're gonna have 2 values of X. X equals, let's work out the plus version first, right? So that's gonna be 0.76 plus 0.65 divided by 8. It's going to give you the value of X as 0.176, okay? So that's one of your values, that's one of your roots. Now let's go ahead and do the subtraction. X equals 0.76 minus 0.65 all over 8. And that's going to give you the X value, or the root, as 0.014. Okay? Now, how do you tell which of these roots you should go with in this chemistry situation with equilibriums? So, in class, it was mentioned that one of your roots would be negative. And the way she said it made it sound as if one of these x's would actually be negative. That is not true, okay? So what was meant to be said was that when you go back in and plug these roots into your ice model, okay, when you go and plug that in, one of the values is going to give you a concentration that is negative. One of them is going to give you a value that is negative. That value, that root, you totally just disregard it, okay? Which in this case, it was this number. And we'll go through that whole chemistry problem here in a bit, just not at the moment. But that is what she meant by one of your roots will be negative. It's not that the actual root is going to be negative. It's that the root, when plugged back into the ice model, is going to provide you with a negative concentration, which is not possible, okay? And that is the root that you completely disregard. You say, nope, not true. You can't have a negative concentration. So you're gonna go with your other value, which is this value for this problem in this equation. That was provided in the notes. So hopefully this is a lot more clear as how you follow and simplify your equation and then plug it back into, get it into standard form. You must get it into standard form. And then you plug those values in for the quadratic equation and you expand and simplify.